Now, joining us for some more context surrounding the government's latest inflation report is Gordon Gray, Director of Fiscal Policy for the American Action Forum. Gordon, thank you for joining us this morning. Let's start with that report itself that we just heard about. Inflation coming in at 8.3% year over year. It's still high, but it's down from July, so that's good. What are the chances that we've finally seen the peak of inflation?
Well, I'm awfully concerned about shelter prices, which make up about a third of CPI accelerating, and in fact are contributing the highest level since 1991. That is a serious concern for me. You've seen this handoff essentially from goods inflation to broad-based inflation, and that certainly should disabuse any lingering notions of a transitory goods inflation. And so I'm very much concerned about core inflation being elevated. I think the Fed is very much on pace for a 75 basis point hike next week. And I think they're going to continue an aggressive contraction in monetary policy going forward.
So with the numbers that we're seeing today, how much of an impact are Biden's policies having on fighting inflation, if any?
Well, I can recall a lot of the cheerleading around the Inflation Reduction Act, which the Congressional Budget Office finally got around to releasing a formal cost estimate on, and the deficit reduction over 10 years was singularly modest, and in fact you saw deficit increases in a number of those years. So for an act that, if that is the high water mark for restrained fiscal policy, then the policies that we've seen peripheral to that, such as student loan forgiveness, the CHIPS Act, which was tens of billions of dollars in corporate welfare. Frankly, I see no indication that this Congress and this administration is doing anything other than keeping their foot on the gas.
So the Federal Reserve likely will hike rates next week, as we've been reporting, so in the attempt to get inflation down, but yet customers will still feel the pinch. How should consumers just feel about all of that?
Well, to be sure, the decline in gasoline prices is going to help the family budget. But then these increases that we're seeing really started to get embedded, again, like shelter, things like that, things that really also animate the family budget. The concern there is that we'll see wage price spirals as people's expectations about inflation become somewhat unanchored from the recent past. And so that is a big reason why the chairman of the Federal Reserve started invoking words like pain in his address at Jackson Hole, is that a lot of us should expect the Federal Reserve to seriously hit the brakes, and in some cases they may actually break things. And the housing market is one of those that they're going to be leaning pretty hard against.
So stock futures are down this morning, as we talked about just before coming to you, pointing to a negative open for the markets this morning. So how should retail investors and people with 401ks react this morning?
Well, I think now would be a bad time to I think people who are I think retirees, for example, hopefully are not exposed to equities that are sort of living and dying on these prints. In fact, the way the market has reacted to a lot of these, frankly, does not inspire a lot of confidence. The notion that the Federal Reserve was going to pause here, I think, is just and I think that sentiment was baked in some of the equity prices that we've seen in the last couple months, and I think that expectation is just not realistic. So I would hope that folks closer to retirement are not exposed to that, frankly, because it's a tough time out there.
Yeah. All right, Gordon Gray, Director of Fiscal Policy for the American Action Forum. Appreciate you joining us today. Thank you.